Good afternoon, St. Louis, and welcome in to the Cards Hub postgame here on Sports Hub STL. Of course, the Cards Hub postgame, like everything here, is brought to you by Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all the games, all the time, home of St. Louis sports fans since 1990. Find your location at hotshotsnet.com, and of course, DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Matthew Rocchio, joined by Brenden Schaeffer today to talk about another late in the game Cardinals loss. The bullpen responsible for the seventh blown game of the Cardinals season already. And I bring in Brenden Schaeffer to talk about this one because we've got a lot to talk about. Everyone in St. Louis is going to be talking about one moment from this game. And that is, of course, Ryan Fernandez comes into the bottom of the eighth. There are two men on. White is at the plate, and then he launches one into the left field seats. And the Braves finish this one 4-1 and win the series. Brenden, your reaction to the bullpen usage today and this series as a whole?
Well, Rock, somebody's got to wear this one. And obviously Ryan Fernandez is going to do that because he's been pitching incredibly poorly. We know that. But that was true before today. That was true before this series even began. And he's not the only reliever that stunk on ice today, right? Like, let's just be real. John King comes in. It's a spot, and people say, well, here's what I'm not going to do today that people want me to do. People are going to want me to rip Ollie Marmol for his management of the bullpen today and the way that he ordered the pitchers he brought in. I'm not going to do that, but stay tuned because you'll enjoy some of the criticism that I do have, and we'll decide who it needs to be placed upon. But there is a time here to be very, very critical of something that has happened. It's not necessarily Ollie Marmol bringing in John King. You would say, well, there's two righties that he faced and then a lefty, Michael Harris. Why does it have to be a lefty, John King? Okay, it wasn't that situation, though, until there was a pinch hitter brought in. Right? Kelnick was going to be the lefty to lead off that inning. They bring in Fairchild. That's why it's two righties, one lefty. So either way, the opposing manager gets to have his advantage there. You just decide who you're going with, and they go with John King. You could tell me all the list of names that you'd rather have seen come into that spot. Matt Swanson would maybe be the one. It just ain't for me, okay? Like, we'll see him, and there's a time and place where they probably should have been able to mix him in recent days. I'm totally fine with knowing that John King is going to have at least that Michael Harris at bat later on in the he needs to be able to get the lefty, couldn't do it, and so the game ends up tied. It's a shame because Miles Mikolas was great today. That's the guy that's been the favorite whipping boy of Cardinals fans, and rightfully so. He's not been very good, especially dating back to that Boston game. But since then, he's kept the team in the game, and today he did more than that. They should have been able to get Miles Mikolas a win. The offense has to wear it a little bit today because you cannot just score one run against Bryce freaking Elder. I'm sorry. You have to be able to do a little bit more than that. The offense has to wear only coming up with one run when on the other side it was a guy with a 7 ERA, just like Mikolas. I think both lineups today, Rocchio, needs to be doing the Spider-Man meme, pointing at each other, going, no, you're the team that underperformed against a bad starting pitcher. No, you're the team that – they both did it, and unfortunately, the Cardinals weren't able to take advantage of the great start that Mikolas gave them. That's number one. But let's talk about what happens later in this game. You bring in John King, and it doesn't go well. Kyle, every day he comes in because every day Kyle Leahy is there to try to save the bacon for the St. Louis Cardinals. Third day in a row he comes in. This one's a rescue mission. And for me, no, you can't start that inning with Kyle Leahy because, frankly, he wasn't supposed to have to pitch today. It worked out just fine in that he came in, gave you a couple of outs, and you feel really good about it. But I do not turn around and point the finger and say, well, why didn't Kyle Leahy come in to begin that inning? Sure, if you go with that mentality, though, that you're afraid of 60% of your bullpen and using them in close games, Kyle Leahy's arm will fall off before the end of June. That's what you're trying to avoid. But in this spot, Oliver Marmol clearly had the conversation, knew Leahy was good for a couple of outs today, and he deploys him in the spot that he did, and he gets out of the rest of the inning, and so you still have a chance to win in this game. Then what happens? You bring in Jojo Romero, who hasn't done his job for the last 4, 5, 6, I don't know how many days it's been that he's come into games and has not done his job. Whether he's rescuing somebody else and giving up a homer, as he did in his outing prior to today, or twice in the Mets series, he's coming in with bases empty. In one of the innings, he even had an out to work with that had already been delivered to him, and he can't get his guys out, so somebody else has to come in and rescue him. That's been absolutely damning for this team. It's not just Ryan Fernandez.
Four straight appearances.
I mean, you
four straight for JoJo. It starts.
He's got to be your eighth inning lefty, Rock,
yeah,
and
it starts in New York. He only gets one out, walks two batters. Again in New York, allows a run in the eighth or a run in the seventh, excuse me, and then he allows a run in the eighth against Atlanta 2 days ago, and he's involved in today's bad games. With 4 straight appearances where JoJo's just been ineffective or downright hurt you.
And so I'm sorry for all the ranting, and you're giving good points as well. But this has been a bit of a buildup because everybody's going to rag on Ryan Fernandez, and rightfully so. He gives up another home run. But was this the first time he pitched in this series, Rock? I don't believe we saw Fernandez until this moment, right? Check the game logs for me on the fly. I know we're doing this show. It's a live show. You can tell. Yeah, he pitched on the 20th against the Mets. That was Easter Sunday. And on my podcast, Be Safe Daily, that night, I said he shouldn't be on the team on Monday. You have to have somebody optioned, and it's Ryan Fernandez, and you bring somebody up and start the Memphis shuttle. You start to churn the bullpen. It's not because I think Ryan Fernandez stinks and will never help the Cardinals again. It was clear that he doesn't have it right now. The combination of command, the combination of now you're too fine with your pitches, and so you're giving up home runs. He couldn't be on the team for this series. And with the way that this series played out, you saw it. He wouldn't have pitched on Monday because you want to give him a day off in between. Yesterday or today were the spots you were going to use Fernandez in. And clearly, Oliver Marmol was a little bit tentative to do it because you went to the other guys before. And I'm not blaming him for being tentative to do it because you try to ease him back into a spot where you can. But then it almost felt like Mike Matheny bringing in Michael Wacha for Travis Ishikawa, where it's like you wait. There's not a perfect spot. And then, okay, let's bring him back in. And look, yesterday's bullpen management was fine. Obviously, the Cardinals ended up handling it. You eventually wanted Ryan Helsley to get some work yesterday. So you can even understand the way that plays out. That Helsley comes in and you don't get a spot for Fernandez to kind of work through something, which ideally would have been that 10-4 situation in the 9th inning last night, right? But no, it's until it's another rescue mission. He's coming in with the game on the line. And of course he blows it because he's not in a great spot right now with the way that his pitches are performing, the way that his command is looking. And so it looks like, oh my gosh, bad bullpen management. How could Ollie Marmol do that? That's not really how I feel. When you look at every single guy he brought in today, from John King to JoJo, it didn't matter who it was, Ryan Fernandez, they all failed except for Kyle Everyday. When that's the case, Rock, when you have everybody that you're bringing in, no matter which lever you pull, it's wrong. I don't really want to pin that as much on the bullpen management today. The problem is, if Ollie Marmol made a mistake over the last 4 days, the mistake was if he had a hand in insisting that Ryan Fernandez still needed to be on this team come Monday. That was the mistake that Oliver Marmol made. And if that wasn't the case, and it was John Mozeliak's mistake, and if it was a combination of the two, then that was the case. You knew that Ryan Fernandez needed to get a blow in Memphis, that he needed to get some time to work through what he's going through. And they didn't do it, and then we don't see Ryan Fernandez in this entire series when you could have had some other potential alternative options, not because he's performing poorly, but additionally because he's worn out after the weekend that he had. So you wouldn't have used him Monday. Was there a fresh arm? I don't know. I'll admit that I don't know Sunday exactly who was used for Memphis to be able to say this guy was fresh. He could have come in on Monday and you'd have had him available for a Monday situation, available for a Tuesday, whatever the case would be.
There's a body available. There's a body, and look, is it a body that Marmol's going to trust on the level of Fernandez? No, but that's almost like you have to take the toy away at a certain point because Fernandez is not performing right now. There wasn't a spot where you could pick, and if he was going to stay on this roster, shying away from him wasn't going to be the way that it worked out to your benefit. And I feel like there was a little bit of that because, I mean, Leahy's coming in for the rescue spot on his 3rd day in a row, which worked because he's been so good. He's turning into an absolute dog in front of our very eyes. But then it's, okay, well, JoJo's spot is here. I can't blame Ollie Marmol for bringing JoJo Romero in. He's an 8th inning guy. Maybe Phil Maton wasn't available. You have to be able to have some of these guys come through for you. And when the main guys aren't coming through, and then you look at, okay, Fernandez, go do your best, man. That's putting him into a terrible situation at that point. But by the same token, you can't manage your bullpen in a way that protects him if he's going to still be on the team. That's why the mistake to me happened 3 days ago. It happened in not being willing to fly a reliever down to Atlanta, Georgia. Whoever it was going to be from Memphis, going through this series with Ryan Fernandez being kind of a touchy-feel guy where you just weren't sure what you're going to get out of him. I'm not saying it was wrong to treat him that way. Clearly, he hasn't had it this year. But he shouldn't have been on the team. And whoever that falls upon, I think that's the mistake that you can put today's loss on, in part. Still need to blame the offense because you got to score more than one against Bryce Elder. But it's fine to be pretty upset about this one, Cardinals fans, because I think the mistake that was made was having the bullpen that necessitated the order of operations today. I don't have any real gripes with the way that Ollie managed the bullpen today specifically.
Every single guy, except for the one who was pitching for a third day in a row, failed. That's not on the manager today, but if it dates back to previous days and the Cardinals weren't willing to do what everybody said needed to happen at the time, it's okay to be critical of that. I think it was a massive mistake to not let Ryan Fernandez start his journey in Memphis, Tennessee a few days sooner so that he could get right and hopefully get back to you and be helpful to you the way that he was last year. I don't blame Fernandez for it. He doesn't have it. Somebody on a higher level needed to step in and acknowledge that before today. It's going to happen now, Rock. He's not going to be on the team Friday. I would be shocked if he's there. And I'll be at Busch Stadium. I won't be there for pregame. So if anybody wants to, feel like I'm incorrect about some of this, that's totally fair. But at a certain point, this was a miserable series loss that didn't need to be that way. They could have won this game 1-0 if this would have been the day of the week that the bullpen could have shined through and through. And I get it. Like, it shouldn't all fall to them because you have to have an offense get you more than one when the other guy's got a 7 ERA. But for me, I think it boils down to the fact that these were the options in your bullpen, and all of them are struggling right now other than a couple. And it didn't have to necessarily be this way if they had been more proactive with managing the bullpen into the weekend. We all knew it was that way with Fernandez right now, Rock, and they were stubborn and refused. Well, it bought them a loss today. I really do think that's what it pins to.
I have two questions for you. One of them is going to be, am I crazy? Somebody responded like, who would you have used in this situation if you don't like the move? And I know you're not calling out the actual
I didn't have a problem
because of the situation. My question is last time Maton had back-to-back games, they pitched him again after 1 day of rest.
Right.
I know he got rocked the previous 1 day of rest after pitching back-to-back days, but why is he not available in that situation? Am I crazy to call it? Why in a similar situation of back-to-back days, 1 day rest, they give him an inning and he looks fine 2 weeks ago? Why is it not a similar situation today?
That's a great question. It's okay to wonder that. We don't know every detail. That's where I am always going to defer to the management team and say, look, I'm not the one that talked to Phil Maton this morning to know what's up, right? Oliver Marmol is. So I'm going to, if Maton was unavailable and maybe he said that on the other post-game show, I'm not aware.
The Twitter response is that he wasn't available.
And I could have told you that, right, based on who they use. So we already were assuming that was the case. I'm not going to find gripe with a pitcher saying, or a discussion happening between a team and a player, and that player isn't available is the way that they decide upon it. That's cool. That's okay with me. I'm willing to operate in those parameters. Fans should be too. Sometimes we don't know that information going in, but as that game played out, you could have guessed, Maton's probably down today. That's what it ultimately is. Why that is, I'm less focused on that because there's so many other things that we could focus on and be upset about. And by the way, our favorite commenter, Aaron, I'm just going to ask, what am I excusing right now? Let me know in the comments specifically what I'm excusing, because what I'm saying is probably going to upset some people that's like, well, why is he being so critical? Because a mistake was made on Sunday night. You can't come into this series with Ryan Fernandez when you know that everybody else is struggling in the bullpen too. It's not the order of operations today from Oli Marmol that cost them. It's what happened or didn't happen Sunday night.
I'm going to rewind it to last week. Should the Cardinals have, and maybe they had the internal discussion, they just didn't pull the trigger, but should the Cardinals have pulled the trigger last week and scuttled the six-man rotation issues or the six-man rotation idea?
No, because they're not using one today.
I know that, but my point is at some point in the first couple of days of that term when they were starting it, did they throw the bullpen train off to the point where it led to this being an issue that started back on Sunday?
Maybe, but listen, I don't think so, because Steven Matz pitched once on April the 16th. It was a week ago today. He needed 4 days to be able to rest anyway because he had a start. Maybe not quite 4 because he only threw 70 pitches or whatever it was. He was brilliant, by the way. But no, I don't think that was a case where the six-man rotation cost them, because we knew coming into it, the Atlanta series, that Matz was available and ready to go. Like he was available to pitch in relief, and he did yesterday for 2 2/3. That question from Chewy that I put on the screen, do I think Ryan will go to Memphis soon? Yes, he'll go to Memphis before Friday. You'll see the announcement tomorrow. That's my prediction. If I'm wrong, come on to Friday's show if I'm on the post game and tell me that I'm an idiot and that I'm wrong.
What's your reaction going to be like if you're wrong?
My reaction is going to be nothing. It's going to be, wow, they're pretty damn stubborn about this Ryan Fernandez kid. I really like him too, but right now he doesn't need to be in the big leagues. He has to be able to go to Memphis and work through it the same way that they allowed Chris Roycroft to do it. You come into this season, Roycroft and Fernandez are the two guys that need to elevate, right? The two right-handers within that bullpen where you're trying to replace Kittredge. You know Maton's going to be coming along shortly, but he's got a short spring, and so you need to ramp him up a little bit more carefully. Roycroft, Fernandez. This Cardinal bullpen looks so different if those two take a step forward and they're 10% better than 2024. Instead, they've been a combined 39% worse, and that's probably being a little bit forgiving and generous. They've been much worse, right? Roycroft had to be optioned. He didn't have his command. Fernandez, he was the eighth inning guy at times last year. He was the backup closer for Ryan Helsley last year. So there was more equity built into what they believed he could be. And so they were more stubborn about sending him down and pulling the plug on it for the time being. That cost them this week. It just flat out cost them this week in this series, because we're talking about games in which the bullpen blew it. And is it fair to your bullpen to say you're supposed to be able to win a game 1-0? No, that's not fair. Offense has to do more. But guess what? When Miles Mikolas gives you 6 shutout innings in 2025, the year of our Lord 2025, you have to win that game 1-0. You have to find a way for that to be the day that your bullpen finds the synergy with the rotation and you go 7, 8, 9 scoreless. Helsley, I have to believe, would have been available in the 9th inning today because he threw 22 pitches yesterday, and it's the first time he pitched all week. I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to Ryan Helsley to say he would have had the 9th. So you have to figure out the 7th and the 8th between the rest of the guys in this bullpen before an off day tomorrow. And they couldn't find a way to do that successfully. That, to me, is not Oliver Marmol. Like, yeah, you could have brought in Leahy to start the 7th, but that's a really dangerous way to manage the bullpen in April. Like, you wanted to get through today, win the game, and not have to use Kyle Leahy. Once it wasn't working for John King, Kyle Leahy's the first guy he turns to get out of that jam. But then your left-handed setup man, Jojo Romero, has to be able to get the job done, and he didn't. So it continues to spiral, and you turn to whoever you turn to next. Rock, they could have brought Swanson into that spot, and he could have either gotten the job done or given it up. He probably would have given it up, maybe not with a homer, but with a base hit, with a walk, with whatever, because he's a rookie that's pitched in one game in his life in the big leagues. It's not the Fernandez spot. The fact that Fernandez was arguably a debatably good choice for that spot tells you he probably should not have been on the team. And so, as Chewy mentions, and I've said it multiple times, the mistake was Fernandez not getting option to Memphis after Sunday so that you could, A, allow him to rebuild himself in AAA under less pressure, and have a look at O'Reilly O'Brien. Have a look at one of these other guys that are down there in AAA doing a decent enough job. I'm not even saying it would have taken a 40-man move, right? Andre Granillo had been pretty solid down there. Haven't seen his stats this week to know. But as of the weekend, O'Brien, make a move, find a way to get somebody else in here, some fresh blood. That's what I thought we were going to see this summer, is a Memphis churn, a shuttle to be able to make sure you had fresh arms. And if everything was looking a little bit behind the 8 ball, you would find a way quickly to be able to address it with some fresh options. And you would think, especially once they decided upon a 6-man rotation, they would have had a little bit more aggression in that regard. We haven't seen it. And in my opinion, it cost them in this series. Maybe not just today, but you could make a case that Monday was a similar outcome as a result, because that game didn't go well for the bullpen. I'm struggling as I'm like ranting here to remember even what the score was on Monday. But as I look it up, I'm sure I'll recall that was the case. Yeah, 7-6. That was the game that the bullpen gives up 5 in the 8th inning. So Fedde gave you a good start. Palante yesterday struggled, and you find a way to win. That was a great way for it to look. But you had basically this series, and I don't want to rip Maton too much because it was his first time that he really had a blow-up like that all season. He had been so reliable before Monday. But it happens to him and Romero in combo on Monday, and it happens today to John King, Romero, and Fernandez. What do you do? I mean, that's half your bullpen by the time we're done talking about those names. That's all the guys, right?
I was thinking that if
Matt's pitched yesterday 2 2/3, Swanson's all that's left. And
I was thinking that if they go into extra, Swanson's got a big load to potentially carry.
Good luck, buddy. I mean, that's what it would have been, right? And so if you want to make your argument, you have to use Swanson there instead of Fernandez. Okay. But I think I'm tired because second guessing is one thing, but it's like when every single person except for the guy that pitched every game in the series sucked today, how is it the manager's order of operations? That's rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. That's all it is to bring those guys into a different order, in my opinion. So, and let's talk about this from David. I'm focused on the wrong Ryan. Helsley's only pitched in 2 innings in 12 games. He's only allowed to pitch 1 inning a game. There's no reason why Helsley cannot pitch 2 innings sometimes. Yeah, there is a reason. There is a reason. Because the Cardinals figured it out at the beginning of 2024, that you have to figure this out to get the most out of Ryan Helsley and keep the guy who throws 102 and keep his arm intact. He doesn't have a contract. Think about Josh Hader back with the Brewers. It was the exact same way, and they're basically using this playbook. And I cannot disagree with it, because if the Cardinals look to Ryan Helsley and say, hey, we're going to bring you in for multiple innings sometimes and on back-to-back other times, and we're going to wear you down, and so that when you go into free agency this offseason, your arm's going to be toast and nobody's going to pay you, and you're not going to be set for life the way that you deserve to be based on your baseball talents. I think Ryan Helsley would say, hey, go ahead and pay me a contract extension and use me how you want. That's exactly what Josh Hader has done with the Astros. He goes back-to-backs now. That is a reality of the game. I don't blame Ryan Helsley on that one bit. The understanding that the Cardinals came to with Helsley before 2024 is we're going to be using you like a closer. And guess what? They got the most out of Ryan Helsley in 2024 because of the way that they handled him so effectively. It kept him fresh enough. Yes, are there times where you're a little bit more limited because of it? Sure. But I have no issue with the way that has been arranged with the Cardinals. But what it means is that you do need to have other guys able to step in. And I think it does set you up for the situation that you had on Friday night last week when it's a tie game in the ninth inning on the road and you've got 1, 2, 3 coming up for the Mets. There was a case to be made that would be a spot for Ryan Helsley. You can go round and dissect that situation and understand why they didn't do it, and I'm cool with that. But what it set up is when you don't have a lead Saturday and you don't have a lead Sunday against the Mets into the ninth inning, you don't end up using Helsley. It's not Ryan Helsley's fault that he wasn't brought into those situations. There's a balance there. Sometimes it's the fact that you have to be competitive enough to be able to use your closer. And then they ended up having to use him yesterday to just get him some work, knowing that today he would have been available if they got him a lead. I can't look and say, well, Ryan Helsley's soft. He only pitches twice in 12 days when the Cardinals only had a lead late in the game. How often in 12 days? And then let's say you do what Cardinals fans are saying they want, this BS that Helsley's fragile. It's garbage. You want to bring Ryan Helsley in the 7th or 8th inning because that's a bigger spot. That's fine. The absolute carnage when Ryan Fernandez or Jojo Romero or Kyle Leahy or whoever else, Matt Swanson, has to pitch the 9th because Helsley pitched the 8th. Absolutely not. And the other thing I won't allow, and then we can look at some of these comments again. There was a guy on Twitter who said they should have left Miles Mikolas in for another inning today. He's your king. Miles Mikolas is suddenly your king after everybody said he shouldn't even be on the team, even in games where he was pitching well. No. I will not allow for that. I will not allow for you to say, actually, Ollie Marmol's mistake was not sticking with Miles Mikolas long enough. Please be fair in your criticism. But a lot of the criticism here is fair, so we'll look at it some more. Let's look at the comments.
We're not doing that. We're certainly not. We're certainly not playing that game.
I'm just halting that completely. We're not doing that.
Somebody responded.
That ain't one of them.
Somebody responded to Braves Rebs propaganda about Ryan Helsley being requested not to pitch because he's scared of the chop.
Don't even put such stupidity on the screen.
Well, it's only because somebody responded to him, and I just want to say that's not true. That is ridiculous. That's a Braves fan being a weirdo about a topic that there's no reason to be a weirdo.
How is it that on a day where the Cardinals have every reliever that comes in, we're blaming the all-star closer for the loss? You guys are awesome, man. It never ceases to amaze. Helsley can't pitch 2 innings because then if you wanted him to pitch 2 innings, he could, but then you can't then turn around and say, hey, we're going to start using you back-to-back, because then he's going to be Kyle Leahy, where he's going every day, he's going multiples, and people are going, I wonder why Ryan Helsley is less effective. You guys can't have it both ways. There's stuff to criticize today. They should have made a roster move with Ryan Fernandez before this series, 100%. It was evidenced in the way that they used him, and it was held for the Waka Ishikawa moment when he was destined to fail. But there was also no better option at that point that was just inherent. You could have gone Swanson, but then, you're talking about who do they have more trust in? Matt Swanson, who they're ready to really rock his confidence when they don't know much about him. Or are they going to say, yeah, Ryan Fernandez, we've seen get out of spots before, so we're going to be stubborn with that. That's a debate, but it's not like it was the make or break for this game. The stuff happened before that cost them. Everybody that was brought in, except for the guy that they use every day, was the failure today. He was the only guy that got the job done. Of course, it's going to be a woeful situation, and people are going to be upset. But I think you got to channel that on the right stuff. The Helsley hate is ridiculous to me. That's just for today being to talk about, was he supposed to pitch in the 8th inning? I just don't get it, man. That's not for, I just don't buy that one.
My thing with the 2 innings thing is, 2 years ago they tried it and it didn't go well. Last year they did it 2 times, and those were 2 of his 4 blown saves. So it's just, and again, you can probably narrow it down and be like, well, the situations, were extreme and whatever. The bottom line is, I don't know why we have a problem with finding a player and saying this is how a player who's elite plays their game, and we're going to make sure that we highlight the things they're good at, we minimize the things they're bad at. That's what coaches are supposed to do.
I agree.
And my thing is just like a player can be good, a player can be an all-star without being the most well-rounded version of that position, and that's what you have with Ryan Helsley. Yeah, he clearly, by every number in his career over the last 3 years, he is better when he pitches only one inning. And so why not accentuate that? Because he's clearly a great pitcher and he clearly makes you a better player or makes you a better team by being used in those roles. Why point out when a team actually says, we have a plan, we're going to stick to it, and these are the facts and numbers that gave us the reasoning for our plan? That's what you should want from your teams.
Couldn't agree more. I think you laid that out better than I possibly could have in my current state. And so let's take Rock at his word. What he said about Helsley is right. What that does mean, though, is that you have to be adjustable and malleable when it comes to the way that you manage the roster with the rest of your bullpen. Okay, we're also tinkering with a 6-man rotation. Matz was available in the bullpen this week, and he helped you. He's a huge reason. If this was hockey and we were giving out 1, 2, and 3 stars, Steven Matz is getting one of those stars for yesterday, going 2 2/3 and being able to kind of bail out Palante when he had one of his lesser starts of the season. Matz was brilliant yesterday. He deserves a lot of credit for that outing. But what did it mean? He wasn't available to come in today to rescue Mikolas. So what does Mikolas do? He bucks up and throws 6 scoreless for them in exactly the spot that they needed. He deserves a lot of credit for that as well. But when you start to look at the limitations on the rest of the bullpen, and it's a combination of like overworking guys and knowing who you can't trust right now because they're not getting it done in those tight spots, you have to be willing to introduce some new pieces. And maybe it's the case that Ollie would not be super comfortable with bringing some of those other guys in because they brought up a Swanson who we didn't see, right? Like that's another aspect of this, that Ollie is more inclined to trust the guys that he's been able to trust in the past and really needs some proof of concept with a guy like Swanson before being able to ease him into the action. But you can't necessarily afford to do that right now because you didn't have a perfect spot materialize for Swanson, which is why he wasn't used in this series. But you also had to understand that the rest of the guys are limited too because they're either a little bit worn down like a Maton, unavailable, or they're ineffective like a Fernandez. And so you're choosing between the rock and the hard place instead of maybe having another additional option to go to. I'm not saying it would have been comfortable to have Riley O'Brien when you haven't really seen him and have him come right into one of those spots, but it wasn't comfortable for Fernandez. It wasn't comfortable for us watching Ryan Fernandez try to do that because of his current state of his pitching. It wasn't going to work. So that's what it boils down to for me. If you're going to trust your plan with Helsley, I applaud you for it. You have to be a little bit adaptable in some other spots, and I think they were too stubborn in believing that Ryan Fernandez was going to magically come out of it without some time in Memphis. Now he's going to go to Memphis. I would be shocked if he doesn't, and we'll see some churn going into Friday. But like, it's tough to single him out. Jojo Romero deserves a lot of the criticism. He's supposed to have a role that is higher up in this bullpen than Ryan Fernandez. He was locked in as a setup man all last year. Did his job largely. He's failed the last 4 times they've turned to him in key spots as well. So that's what happens when everybody you turn to fails. Look to the roster management and don't be stubborn about changing out some of those names. I understand you want to trust your guys, but you got to be willing as a front office and management team combined to recognize ahead of time what was going to happen this week. And they didn't. They careened right into the cliff, and it cost them today. It really did.
We got this from Ethan. He doesn't understand the close-mindedness to using Mikolas another inning. Here's the one thing that's popping out to me as I'm looking over Mikolas's game. He was getting a lot of easy outs with his slider, and it stopped moving in the last inning. And so that probably was a red flag. That was his 3rd most used pitch. He was getting all the ground balls and all the easy outs on his slider. And based on what I'm looking at in Baseball Savant, it kind of stopped moving and getting where he wanted it to go in the last inning out there. And so that's where he gets hammered. He leaves one of those in a spot that's absolutely meatball area, or he does it with a fastball, which is he's always liable to do. So it's risky to leave him in the first place. So just bearing down for not only just the general Miles Mikolas, but specifically this game, I think you can see a couple things that jumped out as to why you have to pull the plug, or else this game's lost an inning or 2 earlier than it was.
And then guess what happens? They look at Miles Mikolas and say, why did they leave him in for the 7th inning? I can't believe you did that.
Yes.
Miles Mikolas, there are stats that we know, right? Rocchio brings it up when Helsley goes multiple innings or he comes in these certain situations, he's not as effective, right? Over the course of time, the Cardinals have catered things to make sure that they limit those exposures. They cater Miles Mikolas starts to limit the exposure the third time through because the numbers are astronomical. It's a known quantity every time they go into a Miles Mikolas start. And yes, that means you have to be adaptable with some other ways you're willing to use your team and your bullpen. 100% it means that. But it's also not wrong. And Miles Mikolas gave you his best start of the season today. To then say the guy that I thought should have been, like being Cardinal Nation, everybody screaming every time he pitches that he should be DFA'd or that he should be released. To say that that's the guy that should have gone 7 today, I absolutely won't allow for it. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. Criticize the right things because there's plenty to choose from. Choose from Jojo Romero failing 4 times in a row when the Cardinals called upon him. He's got to be able to get through some of those spots. He doesn't have it right now. Choose to criticize Ryan Fernandez being on the roster this week against Atlanta when it was clear that it was going to be a break glass in case of emergency situation. And then when you run into the emergency, you might as well just pour kerosene on that fire because it's not going to get any better. It's a tough way to use a bullpen. Criticize the things that I think should be criticized. Man, there's some aspects of it that I think we're losing the plot a little bit. Does Ollie make the lineup 2 days in a row? So JC's not in the lineup today. They scored 1 run, could have used him. This is another thing that we can easily address because before the game on Tuesday, Ollie Marmol told the media, John Denton reported it on Twitter, that they're going to give that runway right now to Nolan Gorman. He's going to be in there. He's going to get those opportunities. Yeah, and we saw it last night. They won the game because of it. They won the game because they stuck with him. They didn't try to pinch hit JC in the 6th like a lot of people wanted. They had him available for that bases loaded spot in the 8th. Contreras deserves a ton of credit for that incredible walk that he bat flipped. And then the 3-run double, Cardinals win because of Gorman's swing yesterday. Gorman draws a walk in the first inning today, and they score a run, right? Like, he's still making his contributions offensively. I'm not going to single out any one guy from the lineup on a day where they scored 1 run collectively against one of the lesser starters in baseball. So JC getting into the lineup, I do think is a priority. That being said, I look at yesterday and say they knew it was a bullpen game, and they had 4 lefties and 5 righties in there, and they had it perfectly aligned, left, right, all the way down the order to where when the opposing manager can go to his bullpen, he couldn't target any specific spots in the lineup. If you had switched out Sajacy for a lefty, first of all, they're giving Gorman runway, so it wasn't going to be him. They would have had a little bit too much counterbalance, and so I understand that there wasn't an obvious spot to put him yesterday with Mason Wynn returning to the lineup. Today, I'll just look through it. Rock, do you have a spot where you think they should have put Sajacy in? Like, I'll be fair.
I disagree with Mantis. I certainly don't think. Okay, or even if you do, here's just like save your health, people. Even if you are Mantis. By the way, it's his name's Mantis, and he has the Frank Reynolds thing, which means it's a Mantis toboggan. Always Sunny in Philadelphia joke. So I want to be friends with you, Mantis, because you have good taste in television. But I feel like you're setting yourself up to be so sad this summer because I understand why you want that. But again, it's kind of with Walker. If you expect them to take away at bats from Jordan Walker in key moments, I just don't think they're going to do that. I just think you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. They want Jordan Walker to, whether or not he fails or succeeds in that moment, this season is for Jordan Walker to fail or succeed in that exact moment.
It's not Thomas Sajacy's year. He's 22.
Exactly. And so I like, you might not be like vacuum it all out. You might not be wrong that they could, that 1,000 times simulation, they win the game or they get a better result if Thomas Sajacy's in that at bat. But you have to add the context to what happens, and that's why unfortunately you're just not going to get this. And so I cannot pinpoint a part of this game where it's blaringly obvious that you got to get Thomas Sajacy in that game.
Like, you're not going to pinch hit Sajacy for Walker. If they were, Sajacy would have started the game and Walker wouldn't be in there. It's just plain. That's all it is. I don't know. I shouldn't have to like articulate that any further. Both right-handed. One of them started, one of them didn't. Use your head.
We got another one here from Nathan Cooley who says we have a worse winning percentage on 4/23/2025 than we did on 4/23/23. Okay, well that's being really particular with the numbers because through 25 games they had won 9 games in 2023. They had won 11 games in 2024, and they've won 10 games in 2025. So,
well, guess what? They stunk that year, and they might stink this year. I don't hate that comment. Like, it is what it is.
Well, no, but last year they were 10-14 through 24 games.
Sure.
This year they're 10-14 through 24 games.
Yeah.
Last year, what killed the Cardinals was was an exactly 500 second half of the season, 33-33. They went on a great run throughout May and June and early July to set the table for last year. So my point is that. And also going into this game, I know now the numbers kind of are skewed the other way, but going into this game, they were 1/6 of the season. They had played 1/6 of the season, and they had blown 6 games. Last year, they blew 36 games. So it was right in line. Like, they were essentially playing almost the exact same season in a lot of ways as last season. Yeah. But compared to last season, the offense is better, and the starting pitching is a lot better than it was at this point last season. So there's some reason, if you want to be hopeful for why this season can be, if not better than last year, at least still a 500 season.
Sure. And again, selective endpoints with that record. But I get it. Like, they're on a bad path right now. And it's for different reasons maybe than it was in 2023. That was the year that the starting pitching just fell apart. You didn't have enough. And this year, the starter's been pretty good. A couple of quick responses to comments, and we'll continue to break this thing down. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Sports Hub STL. Jay Renegade says Walker is also 22. Yes, Walker's 22. So JC's 22. Walker's ahead in the pecking order. This is third MLB season. So JC's had 3 MLB at bats. Like, they're choosing which guy to promote and prioritize this year to find out the most about, and they're doing it correctly. Walker has to be given the priority over JC, and you're not going to pinch hit one for the other with 2 righties in a game in April. It's just not. It's a non-starter. Alex says he used Helsley yesterday with the big league. Continues to put Fernandez into tight situations. Please explain. Happily. They're not going to bring in Helsley to be a rescue mission. He's going to get a clean inning every single time. It dates back to the things that we talked about. This goes back to arbitration, right? Ryan Helsley gets burned in arbitration because he's this flexible guy that can do a little bit of everything and come in whenever, and that's very new age. And then the Cardinals go, you didn't get very many saves there, big boy. Couldn't be very durable there, big boy. And then he goes, are you kidding me? And so they get together and say, this isn't happening again. And that's just the way that it should be, right? They should be willing to understand that side of it, that they're not just going to ruin Ryan Helsley's career by using him whenever. That's the first part. The second part is, forget the score yesterday. It could have been 22-4, and the argument would be that Helsley needed to pitch yesterday. He would have still been available today if the situation came to it. You could make the case that the situation did come to it. They were tied going into the 8th inning, and they didn't use Helsley. No, you don't use Helsley for that spot because you're not going to do the combination of back-to-back and multiples for him. And so if you're thinking that Helsley should be able to pitch the 8th and the 9th today after pitching last night, no. And you could say, well, Helsley didn't have to pitch last night. I get it, but they're not going to use him for 2 innings. It's just, you just got to understand that that's the nature of this business. If they would have signed him to a contract extension before the year, I bet it would have been just fine. And that's okay. I'm not saying that as like a criticism of Helsley. That's how it should be. It worked out for Josh Hader, and now the Astros are reaping the benefits of it because he can be their everyman. And if they blow out his arm, well, at least he got paid. And that's the way that it should go for relief pitchers who often are kind of discarded. You have to make it through those 6 years of pre-free agent eligibility to then be able to get to the pot of gold, or you sign your guy, and the Cardinals have elected to not do that. So they were using him yesterday. Today, they didn't have a situation where he was able to come into the 9th inning because they didn't play a bottom of the 9th inning. If they had, he would have pitched. That's my belief.
They're holding you accountable. So JC is actually 23. You don't know ball, Schaeffer?
Bang! What
and
an
also,
idiot.
How do you not know this? He obviously has more than 3 batting appearances, Brenden. Jeez.
Yeah, dummy. And guess what?
Nerd.
He turned 23 2 weeks ago. You moron! How could you not know his birthday was April 10th, Brenden? You dummy. You insufferable dummy. Hey, Rock, don't you have to talk about DraftKings or something?
Yes, I do have to talk about DraftKings. Thank you so much for reminding me.
Sure, no problem.
It is, of course, baseball season. So here's the best way to play. If you're in Missouri, if you're in California, you're wondering, what's my best way to play with DraftKings? What's my best way to get involved when it comes to baseball season? Well, we have it right now, and it's the DraftKings Picks 6 game with our promo code STL Sports. Baseball season's officially underway. You got to step up to the plate with DraftKings Pick 6. Think about it as your fastball right down the middle, or as I like to think about it as somebody else throwing you a fastball right down the middle, a meatball from Miles Mikolas right down the middle, and you can take it away and win some cash.
That was rude. He was good today.
Thank you. Well, yeah, he was good today. It's the easiest way to play for cash and take a shot at a big win. You just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Pick Six is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. So sometimes if you can't play other games, you can play Pick Six in your state. Cash in with your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick Six credits instantly on a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick Six app and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick Six credits. Again, it's so easy. Let's say for the next Cardinals game, starting pitching's been pretty good, and it's going to be anybody not named Miles Mikolas. I say we're going to go higher. We're going to go more on the innings that they pitch for the Cardinals next start. And that's the best way to get better payouts and bigger wins only with Pick Six at DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick Six not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick Six credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos.
Well, Brendan, we've still got a couple more comments we got to get to because while I was reading that, we got 11 more comments that came in here. People are incensed after that game. Miles needs to be taking this outing and duplicate it. Be a pitcher who gets outs and not a thrower who gets shelled. I'm sure we need to get. Can we write that on a little piece of paper and slip that to Miles when they get back in town?
Maybe. Hey, okay. Right now, this is how I feel with the comments. I think I'm getting the reference correct. Game of Thrones, Jon Snow, he's just like against the entire army. They're all coming at him. And I've just got one little measly baseball bat here that I'm trying to fend it off against. Like, here we go. I'm going to beat Jon Snow. No, a lot of these comments are really good, guys. I get fired up. Hopefully that makes it more entertaining to watch. But I'm always going to be real with you. If I think your comment was on par or if I think you're barking up the wrong tree, I'm just going to let you know. And you can keep coming back every day to love that or hate that about me. But I'm just going to try to keep it real.
I love these comments that are just the most like, yeah, I get it. These comments work great when it's you and your uncles sitting on the porch after Easter church. These comments are great. Yeah, this is the big leagues, man. Potential doesn't mean anything. Leagues. But when you're sitting in an office on Clark Avenue, potential matters a whole hell of a lot to every single decision you make in your job day to day. And so I understand you don't want to care about it, but you have to be realistic enough to understand that why the Cardinals have to care about it.
This from John, and if this is accurate from the post game today, fine. It's incredibly stubborn if that's the case, but I'm not going to react too much to it until it's something that I've heard with my ears, right? But he's saying that it sounds like that Fernandez will still be there. No one's coming from Memphis, and they're still using the guys they have. Now, like I said, I didn't hear that. That could be, hey, no one's coming to bail you out. We got to have our guys with the mentality that they're going to be the ones to get through it. Time's going to tell. I think it would be a massive mistake. This kind of goes without saying. It would be a massive mistake, in my opinion, to have that stubbornness that they decide to not make a move right now. I have not seen anything credible from Ryan Fernandez lately that leads me to believe that it's suddenly magically going to turn around. And the more you have to feel like in that pit of your stomach, you shy away from a guy because he needs to be protected a little bit and put into an easier spot to build confidence back up, the more broken that this is going to get because you can't manage that way. And I'm not saying that all he did necessarily, because yesterday, again, was perfectly fine to be able to use it the way that they did in a 10-4 win. Ideally, you wouldn't have had Ryan Helsley just desperate for some work because maybe that could have been a spot for Fernandez yesterday where you just get him a clean piece of work and you're able to kind of feel his way back through some things. But it is what it is. Like those things sometimes happen. But I just don't see how you cannot afford to be that stubborn. That's the way that I view it. Like if you don't think the Memphis guys are any good, that's fine. Like the longer they don't bring any of them up, the more they must think, the guys we have here are better. That's fine. It's an indictment on the roster if that's true. But I also think it's incumbent at a certain point to show us that it's true, to let those guys come up here and get their asses kicked. Like if you think they stink and you want the guys that you have, that's fine. These guys stink right now. Jojo Romero hasn't gotten his job done lately. It is what it is. Like I think he's a good pitcher that needs to improve and he's going to hopefully find it. But Jojo, King, Fernandez, like this collection of guys that collectively doesn't have it. If you're telling me that nobody in Memphis can be a better option than the ones up here that do have some options and you could roster-wise send them down. Like, I don't think JoJo has any. I just, at a certain point, that's fine. But that's telling you that this is kind of more of a developmental season than we had been led to believe. You have to at least be willing. Develop Riley O'Brien. Like, develop some of these other guys from below and see if they're able to come in and be bullpen guys for you. Because I think at a certain point, it gets to be too glaring. And then when they finally do eventually make a move, maybe it's not Friday, maybe it's 3 weeks from now, and they'll allow Ryan Fernandez to get shelled for 20 times in a row. And then they go, actually, this is enough. We have to call it here. What have you done to serve that player, to benefit that player if you're waiting that long when it just, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll come out Friday and Ryan Fernandez is going to be nails. I'm hoping that's the case. I think at a certain point, though, enough should be enough, and you see what else you have. That was the point of the Memphis shuttle, and they haven't really used it to that extent this year.
John Hansen tweeting providing us with the quote from the postgame. This is who we've got. We have to get them back on track. There's nothing coming from down below that's going to change what's going on here. So at this point, Brendan, it sounds like a philosophical difference.
It seems to me like that, and maybe it is, but that seems to be more than anything. It is a way that you have to, as a manager, kind of pour into the players that you have. Like, don't let the messaging be that, well, we're just going to get rescued by people from Memphis. But outsiders like us, we are absolutely at liberty to talk about that and say, you find a way. So we'll see.
I want to bring this up because it's not just the chat that will get you involved. We had Ikta Centrosi came to us both on Twitter, so thank you very much. You can get it B Schaeffer 12. That's SCHAEFFER, and then Rock STL. That's Rock with 2 C's. You can tweet at us as well. I'm assuming there's probably something behind the scenes there. Remember, Ali had a bullpen worth of bleep last year, and the team was one of the best in baseball in one-run games. This is a Mozeliak problem more than anything else. Kind of getting to what you were saying about maybe not wearing this one on the pitchers getting used, or the sequence that they use the pitchers, but the lack of movements that set up this issue for the Cardinals. And honestly, it's a great point pointing out again, the bullpen was nails last year, and it wasn't a very different group, or a very that much better of a group, was it?
Well, that's the thing. It was better in those key spots where Fernandez was great, JoJo Romero was great. You had
just the bodies aren't different.
No, the names are not all that different. You lost Kittredge and you added Maton. That's almost a 1-for-1 trade. And Maton has been good. Don't get me wrong. Like, the last game he pitched, it wasn't good, but largely he has been that kind of almost 1-for-1. And we'll see as the summer goes along if he can maintain that and be Andrew Kittredge from last year. That'd be great. That's why it's like, I can't necessarily go too hard on John Mozeliak from like a roster building standpoint, because we knew that this was going to be a year where you find out more about your internal options rather than sign a bunch of veteran relievers. They took a flyer on Nick Anderson, and he's still down there in Memphis. He didn't really look the part in spring, so he's in AAA. And then you sign Phil Maton, who has come in and done a very nice job in that role. Those two things are really fine to have happen, Rock. But the other guys that you should have been able to rely upon from last year aren't performing. So what you do now, I think, is where I put the heat on John Mozeliak a little bit. And Ollie Marmol, if he's resistant to seeing some of those AAA guys come up because he doesn't have trust in them, that's fine. That's not inherently better, in my opinion, than having trust in Ryan Fernandez or JoJo Romero to blow the game for the 5th time in a row. Like, it's going to be one or the other. Those guys could blow it too, but we're seeing the consistency with which these guys are not getting it done right now. I'm not saying you DFA JoJo Romero. I'm just saying the ones that do have options, I think you need to be a little bit more willing to see that momentum, and those will maybe be conversations that happen behind the scenes. And if nothing happens, then I'll be wrong. But if I'm going to sit here and just, say, oh yeah, it looks pretty good from Ryan Fernandez, I've got a job to do too. So I'm going to be understanding if the Cardinals don't feel like moving guys up and down is the way that it needs to go right now. That's their prerogative. Mine is to sit here and say that's dumb. They need to be more willing to see what they have underneath. That's what this year was supposed to be about. Fernandez can help you later. Give him 15 days or whatever the minimum is that you have to be sent down, and let him try to work through that in Memphis to be able to join you in early May. I'm totally good with that. But right now, I think it's hurting their big league club.
Samuel Howe, to that last point you made there, Brendan, give the guys a chance. Samuel Howe pointing out that Matt Swanson had a minor league save streak in the AAA. He was leading the league. And they bring him up here. They've given him the 1 inning. Maybe you just, why, if you're gonna move guys, if this is the season to be aggressive, why not actually follow through and be aggressive? And to your point, it's such a little bit of overhead that can pay off down the line. That's I think something we looked at with the Cardinals, with how they make mistakes. They instead of they could have spent $1 million on coaches spread across the minors over the last couple of years, and it would have done the organization millions and millions of dollars worth of good, but they didn't want to put that little bit in. And I think that's really the actual issue with the Cardinals. It's not necessarily that they're spending the big money wrong or that they're not spending the big money. It's that they're missing those little things. Just be a little bit more aggressive. Suck up the fact that you're going to have the Memphis Shuttle going up and down all season long, because in the long run, that's going to be better. Because to Nathan's point, he was wondering if this season's really going to make them better for 2026. Part of the investment this year isn't just the runway and the plan of Nolan Gorman, how to get him more at bats. It's also saying it's the saying we're going to give young players across the board a chance to show us what they have. And they've been good at it at some points, and they've been kind of restrictive at other points. And the problem is that the restrictive factor hasn't made any sense. And I think that goes back to some comments we've had before, which is a lot of the problems with this season has gone down to the Cardinals' poor communication over the offseason. And I think that's still affecting a lot of the conversations we're having today.
And like the extent to which that's the case, I don't have the brain power to weigh in, but Rock was on a roll, so we were making that happen. I want to address this. Why wasn't I so upset about the Mets series? I don't know what to say to that. Like, I can contextualize things. I can contextualize losses and talk about the good and the bad and the indifferent, and like break this Cardinals team down minutia. When you're doing multiple shows every day talking about the team, you're going to get into a lot of that minutia. My reaction to the Mets series was, and I don't know if he listens to my solo podcast, I think that's where I made this claim, was like, you have to option Ryan Fernandez tonight. You need to get somebody up there to try to turn the bullpen. That's what this season is calling for. And so, like, that was my reaction, is to say they need to make a move. I rarely am going to tell the Cardinals what to do because they know more than I do. People will disagree with that. They know more about the intricacies of the moves they need to make. But when they are glaringly missing the boat on something, I'm not afraid to speak up about that and say, here's my thoughts on it. So, like, I told you the Mets sweep was not very good, and it was a shame to waste the starting pitching. It was a shame that the offense that was supposed to be taking the step forward under Brant Brown got 9 runs in 4 games. I said all of these things. It's imaginary if you think I didn't. It just didn't happen that way. The reason that I'm more fired up today is because I think it is the degree to which the stubbornness has persisted has increased. When it was clear to me 3 days ago that I thought they should make a move, which I rarely tell them, here's what they need to do. Because, again, I'm going to defer more often than not to there are things that I don't know going on. Maybe that's true this time, Rock. I hesitate to believe it. I think that there is just a point to which I'm going to allocate it towards stubbornness and an unwillingness to veer into the unknown. Because the thought is, I'm Ollie Marmol, and I know that these guys have gotten the job done for me in the past. I'm hesitant to say, let's make some wholesale changes with this bullpen. The manager's going to be hesitant to do that because he's got those priors to understand that these guys have been nails for him back into 2024. Right now, that's why I would have, as the Pobo said, that's understandable, Ollie, and you're too close to this. I need to get some churn in here and be willing to provide you and almost limit the options to the guys that we might have a chance to be successful with. Fernandez, I just didn't think was going to be one of those such guys in this series, and they brought him into a spot where it was a no-win situation, really. Gave up a homer. He could have given up 1 run, and they still would have lost the game. That's what it boils down to for me. Like, they may not have that trust in Matt Swanson yet. They may not have that trust in Riley O'Brien. They may not. I mean, I think Roycroft has been down enough days. He could have come back. They may not be very trusting in him right now. All those things are fine. At a certain point, though, that's the group that has to be making up a larger contingent of your bullpen, because the Cardinals fans that are watching these games have good reason to not trust Ryan Fernandez on April 23rd, 2025. They have good reason to go, man, JoJo is, if he's your best lefty option in the 8th inning, that's a tough look right now. But that's what the organization is. Like, they don't have anybody behind the lefties for sure when Libby and is in the rotation and Matt's sometimes is, so he wasn't available today. Like, maybe that's the death knell for Steven Matz in the rotation long-term, is he's too good in the bullpen where they almost have to have him be the setup man from the left side if JoJo is going to continue to struggle. Hopefully JoJo finds it. He's going to be working every day to find it, but that's what they need, right? I also think they need a little bit of a change when there's guys that have options. You have enough spots in that bullpen that are malleable. I think the reason you didn't see it, though, Rock, is the same reason that we didn't see Matt Swanson come into this series. There's not a trust there that Matt Swансon's going to get the job done, and I think that's applicable to anybody from underneath. I'm explaining that that's what I think's going on with Ollie Marmol in this series. I'm not saying that's right, though. I think at a certain point, you have to maybe be willing to do some different things. That being said, I'm not ripping him for who he brought into the game. I'm more thinking the stubbornness comes from last Sunday, not. And again, he doesn't make that roster move, so that's probably not a fair allocation. But somebody had to step up and say, Ryan Fernandez needs a blow. He needs 2 weeks in Memphis. Nobody did. Here we are.
That's fair. I will throw Aaron a bone. Okay, we'll make Aaron happy. Okay, that road trip was pathetic. There you go.
He wants me to say what?
He said
this was a good road trip. This was what the Cardinals needed. This was just what the doctor ordered. Good God.
It's the same thing on this one. It's just what have
been doing for 55 minutes? Holy crap.
It's this weird thing where fans think they care more than the guys who have been doing this their whole life and like have been thinking about only doing this since they were 3 years old. Like it's like I don't understand how that became the go-to reasoning for so many sports fans is the players don't care. They don't care. They don't have the passion.
It's only their livelihood.
It's like, and my thing is I don't want to be disrespectful. It's like I want to be like, do you care about your job? Is what I want to ask these people. Like,
not anymore. I don't care about mine. Somebody take it away.
Do you have any passion in your job? Like,
oh goodness.
And by the way, to take the actual like hard look at it, people are saying the attendance is going to fall off and viewership is going to fall off. The franchise is crumbling. That would be true if they weren't planning for this. If they're not in the rooms right now saying, we know what our book looks like for 2025 and 2026, it's bad. Here's how we get back to a point where we're profitable and so on and so forth. Because that's their jobs, again, because they care about their job. And they predicted that they were going to lose 1 million fans across 24, 25, 26. They predicted they were going to lose the 1 million fans. And that's what's happened. And so it's not good, but to think that they're in there right now with their heads on fire, I don't think that's an accurate representation. I think it's not great, but I don't think these people are morons. And I think they were able to figure out it was probably also going to not be great this year. And they're correct, and it's not been great.
That's the thing. And like you can put on a brave face, but you can also understand the limitations when you decide that you're not going to add to payroll. You're going to significantly subtract from it. And like you said, they're not morons. Like they know the circumstances, but you hope you can kind of outperform some things by guys taking a step forward. And there's a realm still in which that happens. But so far, we can evaluate a Cardinals team that's 10-15 has gotten a 574 OPS from Contreras. Now he's on the way up, and he'll be at 700 before the end of the month. Burleson's got a 645 OPS, including a 3-for-4 today. So he's improving.
Their rookie of the year candidate was missed the last 10 days.
10 games just as he was starting to heat up. Walker's OPSing 540 and hitting 198. Like those are things that are happening that they didn't know for sure Walker was going to hit 198 through the first 4 weeks of the season. Like the hope would be that Walker would take a step forward, but you have to play him this year to find that out so that next year you can go, Jordan Walker is option A, a key piece of our future, and we want to extend him. Option B, probably a key piece of our future. We're not going to extend him yet because we're not super sure, but we like what we saw. Option C, Jordan Walker's a platoon guy at best. Option D, like Jordan Walker's a bust, but you don't find that out until you give a guy who's still 22, turning 23 later this month, the same age, by the way, as Thomas Sajaci currently is. You don't know those things until they play out, and so that's what 25 is going to be about. And at times it could be to the detriment of the win-loss record, but in a great ideal world, it actually helps the win-loss record because those things develop in concert with one another and they step forward because of it, and more of the current core can be part of the core of the future. They have to do it to find that out. We're going to see. Right now, today, the Cardinals they're on pace for how many wins, Rock? 10 divided by 25. That's a 40% win rate, which means they're on pace to win 64.8 games, right? They're going to go 65-97 is the pace they're on. I'm going to tell you they'll be better than that unless they completely blow it up at the deadline. I still think the Cardinals are going to be better than what they've shown, but we can evaluate what they've been, and it's problematic to be 10-15. You don't want to be 10-15. Those teams don't make the playoffs. We want to see the Cardinals make the playoffs. That's where you're at right now. We'll continue to evaluate what it looks like, but they might be short still. Guess what? They probably thought that they were. It's why they didn't go out and try to sign that one extra reliever or that one extra bat or that one extra starter. They said, let's save money because this might not be it for us this year, and we'll see the fallout of that. We'll talk about it every godforsaken day on Sports Hub STL. Unfortunately, this is what I do. I like my job.
I hate feeding the trolls, but like I gotta make one. I just can't help myself. Aaron Dobson, the DeWitts only care about money and not winning championships. Considering they have 2 world championships, I gotta find something that I'm good at and can be as good at as but not caring. But never, I don't want to care about something, but I still want to be really good at it. Because like for not caring about winning 2 World Series and like a 57% winning percentage for their entire ownership.
They're down lately, Rock. The organization is down lately. I get it.
I just want to find something to suck at that I can be as good at winning, where I have something I'm better at, which is making money, like the DeWitts. Like I just wish I could. Like something that is such a high level, man. I wish I had anything that cool that I sucked at.
The problem is you suck at sports radio, but you can't make any money doing it. That's like you're looking to you're looking to find that thing you cannot be very good at, but you can be profitable.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, why can't I? Exactly. What the hell, man? They got this thing figured out.
It's been an hour. Mitchell's still watching Friday, so I think we've done our job. That's what
I think I'm calling it. Done our job. This is, of course, Sports Hub STL, and it is the Cards Hub postgame brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. And, of course, our great friends over at Hot Shots. All the games, all the time, home of STL sports fans and Hot Shots fans, because if you're there, you're a fan since 1990. Find your location at hotshotsnet.com. Cardinals come home, so there'll be plenty of room down at those Hot Shots to be watching those Cardinals games, because you need to be in a good place when they lose the game in the 8th to immediately be able to refill your beer, restock up on.
Holy smokes. Why don't we get beer? Dang it.
Because we're professionals? I don't know. Anyhow, play a little DraftKings pick 6. Just pick a Cardinals reliever to get less than however many outs they put out there as the prompt, and I'm sure you'll be cashing. So play a little DraftKings, get some beer at Hot Shots. That's the way to enjoy the Cardinals, because right now they're not winning the games we want them to. Thank you so much for joining us in the comments. You guys were incredible today. Thank you so much to Brenden Schaeffer. Brendan, you were on fire this entire show. Hopefully the Cardinals can get back on fire, and we'll be back with Cardinals coverage tomorrow. Cards Hub 365 tomorrow afternoon, 1 p.m. right here on Sports Hub STL. Have a great afternoon, St. Louis.